lot of people I know have certain misconceptions when asked what curriculum is. For them, it is a piece of paper to which the process of teaching is inscribed. While this is not wrong, in a sense, it is imperative to keep in mind that curriculum in itself encompasses the overall learning experience. In fact, it is heavily regarded as the art of education, and rightfully so, as it is a standard-based sequence of planned experiences where students practice and achieve proficiency in content and applied learning skills. It is a central guide for all educators as to what is essential for teaching and learning. So, every student will have access to rigorous academic experiences. The structure, organization, and considerations in a curriculum are created in order to boost students' learning and facilitate proper instruction. Think about it as one of those lone but rather aesthetic-looking lighthouses. They stand as skylight to help those out there in the sea to find their way back to the shore. If that is still not enough, imagine the blueprint used by engineers whenever they construct a house or something. Without it, there will be no basis for developing project requirements. Simply put, curriculum is what makes education structured, and it basically outlines the overall learning process and is henceforth considered as learning experience itself. Keeping these definitions in mind, it is simply understood that curriculum is indeed flexible, since it exists to accommodate and outline the overall learning process. It then follows that it adapts to the student's needs and capabilities. What does this mean? In a nutshell, this implication describes how, as a generation progresses, curriculum to adapt to the nature of that specific era. Meaning, it adjusts, and in here lies the main reason for why you are staring at me blabbering inside a small screen course. This is Leonard Patrick Yapis speaking, by the way. I am a second year aspiring to be an English specialist who is currently taking a majorship in English under the program Bachelor of Secondary Education at Leyden Normal University. I dream to be many things. Some of them I am already living now, and most of them I'm still trying to reach. But anyway, that's not entirely the point. My being here is a special requirement in one of our subjects, the teacher in the school curriculum. Put simply, I have been tasked to interview 3 people who have taken their elementary days in the supreme guidance of Marcus's seniors, Cory and the Shirtist regimen. This is to determine and analyze different curriculum of those 3 different eras. As such, questions such as the overall learning experience, subjects taught, medium of instruction, books and references used, and the instructors of method and discipline and attitude as when they face their student is taken into consideration to really unravel the difference between the 3 mentioned dimensions. For the first discussion, I refer to the first interviewee who had her elementary education in the period of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. The person in question is christened after Mary Ann Yapi Endronel. She is about 60 years old and is currently residing in the corners of Abuyo, a part-time housewife so to speak, and a seller in the marketplace. Let's hear what she had got to say in terms of her overall experience way back when she is referred to as the learner.
Experience dito Manila, dito man ako nag-grade 1. Dito ako nag-grade 1, hasta ka nag-grade 2. Dito, ako dito na experience ang pagsakay-sakay. Bida kay, na nga oras pa lang makuhan. Magmamata kami alas 4. Kaya pag alas 7, kinanglan na to na kami eskwelahan sa public room. Niyan, ay kung late na kami, ito, pinubutangan na yung tardy. Tapos, pag eskwelahan liwat, may naman naman mga lecture. Tapos, magpapasawir na nito mga maestra, mga estudyante, mga kabataan, nitsahanin,
Chalk.
chalk or ito nga
Eraser.
Nitsahan ito, pero okay lang. Dire na sisina. Dire, pero yan nga, pwede na i-report. Matatanggal ang servisyo. At muna, okay lang. Natapos, dire Di rin man, kung ano ito, ano ba ito, sa kada na may meeting, okay lang, mag-leader ka, mag-hearing, okay lang. Okay lang dito. Tapos, ang eskwela dito, kutob lang kung pang-aga ka, pang-aga ka. Kung pang-kulog ka. Kutob lang ka di alas 12. Tapos, pagkabuasan, amo ito, di paro din ye, magkulog it sulod. Amo ito. Tapos, nagkakalit paglikunan, PE, soft drinks lang to. Makuha pagod ang soft drinks barato. May 25 pesos, 25 centavos. Ang pamasahe ko, kay estudyante man ako, 25 centavos, 30 centavos, ang nanay.
The most important takeaway perhaps with her answers are the particularity of their instructors when it comes to teaching. Unlike the ways of the now, the before relies to the skills and knowledge of the teachers to create the learning experience. This is through a drawn-out discussion and quizzes, which means the core of the learning process is the teachers themselves. To explain this in simpler terms, the role of the learner is merely to be acted upon by the teacher-controlled environment, meaning the teacher's role is to manipulate the environment to shape behavior, which in turns make apparent the fact that learners are no way closer to being an agent in the learning process. Rather, they are the so-called animals that instinctively react to the established environment. This held true because from the way the interview is going, the interview processes a data to which a strict way of learning is involved. The teacher being the central point of education, she is the lead authority that controls whatever happens in a discussion. As what she remembers, their instructors are being scolded about by fear. More like a monster with a human face, his stares alone is more than enough to make them sit properly without moving an inch. She even joked that perhaps it was a challenge of whose trembles are the greatest whenever the teacher comes. And this shows just how much of a difference the skip of time creates. There's even a time when she goes home with her hands a little painful, with the beating she got from being distracted sometimes. And all that her mother would say is how she deserves it so, since she keeps neglecting her teacher's warning. Remembering this, she goes so far as to compare how disciplined the learners from way before, since, as she observed, the students nowadays, when disciplined, whine so much as though the world had forsaken them. What's worst, according to her, is how they forgo these complaints to the segment of Rafi Tolfo instead of going forth with it in the right channels. It's too bad, she says. What does this mean anyway? What implication and approach is implied by this scenario? Of course, that will be the behavioral approach. This approach is developed based on the principles of behaviorism of Frederick Taylor, whose main aim is to improve efficiency. This being said, it is concerned primarily with the observable and measurable aspects of human behavior. As has already been established, this approach centered in the teachers and is anchored to the belief that human behavior is a result of their reaction to external stimuli, and as such, lined into the perspective that changing the environment can in fact change behaviors. Hence, the kind of discipline and authority the interview's teachers exuded. It is also based in the view that there is one right away, one truly that the students need to learn, and that knowledge is the same for all learners. An updated way of viewing things but is nonetheless effective at their time. Moving on, the type of curriculum embodied here is probably the ideal or recommended curriculum. By definition, this identifies skills, concepts, and contents that will be emphasized throughout the learning process and is often presented by the authority to school as a policy recommendation with a list of goals and the sequence content suggesting that graduation requirement. The viable evidence for this is the ways to which, according to the interviewee, the source of their studies is implemented. With the government owning and creating books and references, they then become the organization being referred to by that definition. But then of course, this stems with what the experts in education suggest, and not only by the government itself. It may come from varied sources including nationally recognized researchers, policymakers and legislators, and others. As such, it focuses on the content, skill sets, and tools educators should prioritize in the classroom. The philosophical anchor, on the other hand, demonstrated in this kind of classroom is essentialism. The main proof for this is the role in which teachers play. According to this philosophy, instructors are master teachers of a particular topic or discipline, are model worthy of emulation, are in control of the classroom, and are the decision maker who centers the overall learning experience with minimal student input. All these have been regarded and spoken of by the interviewee, pertaining not only to their discipline but also to the way a drawn out discussion to them is showcased. And if I may add, the subjects they are to take from way back includes but is not limited to mathematics, science, English, Filipino, history, and physical education. From here, it is apparent how this aligns to what is perceived in the lens of this educational philosophy. From the discussed narrative, we can perceive how the alignment of education from way before is inclined to the traditional way of teaching. This kind of manifestation, as observed, is no longer relevant to the now, though it is nonetheless still emulated by some teachers.
The next interviewee comes from the ruling of Cory herself. She is referred to as Jenny Cortez, 42 of age, a Filipino citizen who works in the city of Manila. I help her to be more specific. She has started studying in 1987 and as such has been under the wing of the president in question. Further, she works as a part-time seller and is generous enough to provide her family genuine support. Let us come to understand how she has experienced the tide of learning from when she is still a student.
Siguro ato nga time dira ito nagalang pagpatok daw hagawas it mga maestra. Kung diri ka na mamaki papakan ang kagudliton about it gintutot do. Kung wari ka mababato nagtitinok daw ka may dapit portahan. Ang mga libro hadto kunot-kunot permi kay hinuhubya man gud pagputos amo nakukuren ako pag permatak clearance. Tapos may mga herimon pangagin papadara balay na kailangan mo talaga kadtuon sa library.
When you come and think about it, the approach to which the system of education herein relies on the use of references, which further implies how much the learning process is knowledge-oriented. With the books as the main source of learning, as what's provided by the government, there is a great emphasis to how much it is the core of where assignments and tasks are derived. Although there already is the existence of computers, they are yet to be highly advanced but are still had with them a higher price that cannot be afforded by common folks. Right off the bat anyway. This is in line to what the interviewee has experienced. And for what she remembers, she always had a hard time having her clearance signed because the means to which her given book must be covered can barely be afforded by her parents. As such, her copies almost always had with them wrinkles, which also results for a much more intense scolding. This implication leads to a method by which sometimes endeared for as traditional, encyclopedic, synoptic, intellectual, and or knowledge-oriented approach. This curriculum creating is inclusive with trends and issues and as such integrates various instructional, teaching, learning, guidance, evaluation, supervision, and administrative procedures. Furthermore, the academic approach to learning uses a range of higher orders thinking skills, processes, and dispositions or habits of mind which implies a dare to demonstrate persistence and rigor. This is especially true since drill about the interviewee's head way before is how they should be able to comprehend and really read through the in-betweens of the text. See through meanings after hidden meanings, she says. Be that as it may, the next important thing is the type of curriculum used. Should I be honest? I actually at first didn't think there is much of a difference from this time in the previous regimen. You see, the interviewee still talks about the kind of discipline that which is from way before already a practice. Take for example, When they're found not really giving much of their attention to the discussion, they'll either be scolded, thrown with various things, shocked more permanently, or be checked out, merely standing against the wall the whole time. This kind of reflect the teacher-centric attitude of the curriculum before, only there is a slight difference. By this time, there already is a slight participation from the student. For as long as their raised hand is acknowledged, they are given an ample time to explain their thoughts and opinions about the current discussion. It is exactly for this that I come to understand how the curriculum type is still that of the ideal or recommended curriculum. This is relevant still, since there is likewise a reliance to what the book resource handed and accounted for by the government. And if I may add, the subject to which is scored off by this type is English, Filipino, mathematics, science, and civica at cultura, a subject by which is reflect to what the interviewers relayed. Lastly, the philosophical anchor of the educational system by this era is in fact a blend of both idealism and realism. This is due to the fact that the subject concerned herein is relied inclination to history, math, literature, and language, all of which had been established earlier, follows an end result of beyond critical thinking. From this, we can infer that although the curriculum and learning process has similarities to how things are done from way back, there is a slight difference when the core and focus are underlined.
In the reign of Duterte, there is a major revision in the way that the system of education is implemented. From the traditional setup, the core and the center then turn to the learners themselves, them being the bearer and the ways to which the experiences are shaped. But more of that later. Let us first listen to the interviewee's sentiment as to what she has gone through when she was once an elementary learner. Christine is what she's commonly called. Aged 15, she is currently taking her 8th grade in the institution of Sagka National High School.
The first thing that is made apparent is the mood and atmosphere that which is established by the teachers themselves. As what we've heard from Christine, they are harbored with the greatest of patience. They are given time to discover themselves and learn at their pace. By this I mean they are not scolded when they are not able to easily understand the nature of the topic they have discussed. Instead, they are told to remain in the class for a remedial class. What's observable here is the fact that even such a prospect is not perceived by the interviewee as a threat, because their instructors always maintain this motherly posture and endearing and gentle aura. From here, the big difference of the way things are done is surely apparent. Unlike before, they now see their teachers as someone to be befriended with and someone to be comfortable of, rather than be wary of. These approaches have their reference to humanistic, in which the learners as a human being is the prime significance for the overall learning process. It is based in the belief that the education that is good for a person is also best for the well-being of the nation. Here, the individual learners is not regarded as a passive or at least easily managed recipient of input. Instead, they are the choosing or self-selecting organism. This is punctuated to the viable fact that teachers now consider learners as an individual with distinct characteristic, and as such must not be bordered by what the others are capable of. Further implying that there is no only one learning, since each of them is made to understand in different ways. As for the curriculum types, theirs goes to the mixtures of hidden and implemented ones. This is due to the scenario of which the interviewee has presented. She pertained to activities such as when their teachers brought them elsewhere, either to the hall or to the plaza, to play something in relation to what they have discussed, even if it is class hours. Far from discouraging them, this gives the students all the more reason why they wanted to learn, why they wonder. This is in line to how hidden curriculum is defined since it refers to various skills, knowledge, and attitudes that students learn in school as a result of their with interaction with other students, staff, and faculty members. The implemented ones being there, meanwhile, is due to the fact that their teachers actually teach and deliver learning activities that centers in their interaction. Sometimes, they had sessions wherein they just sort of merely singing different nursery rhymes or reading storybooks from which is stacked about in their shelves in the corner. On the other hand, the philosophy to which this curriculum is anchored goes to existentialism. This is in line to how the role of the teachers is conveyed. She is their learning partner, facilitator, though she too is an authority to follow. She upholds a democratic approach in which the students are given the freedom to actually do what they're best at in accordance to their guidance. Of course, this shows that how much of a learner-centered this system is. Further, as what has already been established, there is no structured discipline, but rather the students are given leeway for selecting from many available learning situations. From this, the nature of learning becomes something of a matter that students can choose from, something that they can learn to experience by what they decided on. Although it is still but under the guidance of a knowledgeable authority, there is an emphasis to the focus, which is the learners themselves. Therefore, from the manner of which the difference are hereby disclosed, an inference of the reality of curriculum is likewise understood. While curriculum appears to be the cornerstone of the intellectual life of an institution's inhabitants, it still proceeds to an undeniable change. It means curriculum is never static. As a generation progresses, curriculum too adapt to the nature and needs of that specific era. It's obvious that there should be a need of suggestion in terms of new procedures to accommodate the level of the postmodern ways of thinking. Otherwise, the learning experience will remain as it was and will not be of any means aligning to the upbringing and certain behaviors of the students by that moment in time. Moreover, we must come to understanding that curriculum development is a broad concept, for it is not only about the school, the learners, nor the teachers. Rather, it touches development of society in general. This is because whenever there are changes around the world, the school curricula are affected. From here alone, we could comprehend that there really is a need for updates so as to address the society's current needs. In Mary Avia's article, The Meaning and Importance of Curriculum Development, she has illustrated the ways to which society itself and the circumstances around it affects the development of a curriculum. According to her, parents used to teach their children skills only to survive by catching fish or hunting animals for food. This is an implication that there is no formal education during that time, especially since all that they are focused more on survival. As such, the core of the curriculum then is to meet that need. However, when the effects of discoveries and inventions became inevitable, ancient people's way of life had changed for the better. As a result, education became formal and curriculum development evolved as systematic, planned, purposeful, and progressive, even today.